Council 4.
Present.
The Honorable Corey A. Reeves, District 5.
Accounted for.
The Honorable Natasha Williams, District 6.
Present.
I believe I saw Councilwoman Gums entering the chat. Are you there, Councilwoman Gums?
I am. I'm present. Thank you for recognizing me.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You do have a quorum.
All right, please sound the next item.
Point of order, Mayor.
Yes, Councilwoman Willis.
The City of South Fulton City Council adopted a format for work sessions. And unfortunately, I mean, I know it may take a little while for us to get used to the format. But there are some things that are not accurate on this agenda. And I would like to make a few motions at this time to correct them.
Okay, your point of order is noted. Is that where we are at? Didn't hear our clerk sound the item.
Well, you just asked him to sound the next item on the agenda. So before he gets to sounding items, the agenda needs to be corrected, because the next thing after calling the order and the roll call would be starting to call the items on the agenda, and it impacts the staff report and also impacts the presentations, items 3 and 4.
All right, so we'll hear your motions now.
Thank you. I would like to motion under section 4. I would like to motion that my request was for specifically to hear a transition plan from Public Works and the right-of-way schedule. And so I would like to strike, I did not request to hear any presentations from Jacobs. So I would like to strike from the agenda presentations from Jacobs.
All right. Is that your only?
Well, there's also needs to be a correction. Yes, that's one. The other thing is sanitation update. That should be given by staff. I am the lead sponsor for that ordinance, and that update is coming from staff. So you have it under the Public Works presentation, and that is not a presentation that is going to be given by Public Works. That update actually is coming from our city manager team. So that should not be on the agenda under Public Works. Number 7, it actually should be under section 3 with staff reports.
Okay.
The other thing, that was the second correction that needs to be made. The other correction that needs to be made is that the MS4 Stormwater Program is actually coming from, that presentation is actually coming from Public Works, not, it wasn't requested for EPD to make that presentation. That is actually staff. The third correction that is made, the land bank presentation, I asked for the records from our clerk, and he did not get an official email requesting for this presentation to be placed on the agenda. He did mention that this was a request that was made back in February, but according to the ordinance that was adopted for a work session, for items to be placed on the agenda, it must be initiated with an official email, and those items, and it was not initiated, that item was not initiated with an official email, and only 2 items from council can be placed on the agenda. You get 2 items, and so this agenda well exceeds those numbers.
All right, is that all?
Yes, at this time, that is all.
All right, is there a second for this motion?
Second.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded. We'll have discussion now. Is there anyone in the queue for discussion? All right. Well, I'll begin with my discussion. I try to make these agendas to incorporate everyone's feedback everyone's requests for information. The where to begin? So it doesn't sound like there is anything missing. No one's issue was left out. Everybody's issue is included. There is just an issue with the format. So I'm going to uh, run through some things real quick for council's consideration. First, I'm going to start with the public works presentation. We put all of these. I put all of these items under public works because both sanitation, stormwater, and all these other public works services are about to be insourced into our. They're about to be insourced into our city. So I thought that they were all related. Before we before council passed this resolution, I believe it was actually you, Dr. Rowell, a couple of work sessions ago that wanted to hear information on stormwater, MS4, and stormwater collections. So we went to the experts, which is the Georgia EPD. They're the people who actually regulate and will review whatever we submit to make sure that it's correct. So they are present today to answer any questions that council might have about what is required for stormwater collection, what their best practices or recommendations are. If council would not like to hear from the regulating agency for stormwater, which is the EPD, they do have a PowerPoint, but if it's council's pleasure to not hear from the regulating agency and to only hear from us ourselves, that is council's pleasure. But I think it makes sense to have, if the EPD are the experts, I think it makes sense to have them be in the conversation, and we may learn some things or may have some other questions for the EPD because they regulate, other things in our city in addition to stormwater, right? What are these? I can't think of them. Watershed management and these sort of issues. Secondly, the monkeypox and COVID update also requested before we came up with this format. Multiple council members, I believe you, Councilman Sebastian, were the first one to ask for it, and then Dr. Rao, you also were interested in it. When we passed our indoor mask mandate. So I included that from previous conversations. No email was sent about it, but again, just remembering all the things that were talked about in the previous conversations. The Jacobs was asked to talk about, we're going to hear a presentation about our call center. I asked Jacobs to provide us data. We have heard anecdotally that only a portion of the calls in the call center were coming for public works. And so the questions began, how much were, what were the other calls going to? That last month we had a 23% abandoned call. That means people just hung up because they had been on hold for so long. So trying to get some understanding about how the call center had been managed, where the bottlenecks are. I think if we're about to create a whole new call center, we might want to talk to the people that have been running the call center for the past 5 years, but neither here nor there, because Jacobs is not available today. They asked if they could make that presentation at the next council meeting. So I'm going to try and get them on for that. And unless all of our questions about how we're going to set up and run our call center are all resolved to everybody's satisfaction today. And then lastly, the resolution didn't really contemplate whether or not the city manager wanted to have anything on the work session. But as the chief administrative officer of our city, I think if she has an issue that she wants to talk about in the work session, I will happily give up one of my 2 items for the work session. So we've got basically 4 things: stormwater, monkeypox, public works, and this land bank. The Metro Atlantic Land Bank and the stormwater, if necessary, can be my items, even though they're items that council and staff has requested. But I think that we have a good longer no shorter. I think that we have a good work session planned for today, and we have these experts from the regulatory agencies to answer questions that we might have and give us presentations on what we will need to go forward to offer these services. So I would ask if council would just let these professionals speak, and if they have any questions, they could answer questions for staff and council. So that's I just want to just put that in everybody's ear for their consideration. There any other comments?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, you have 3 hands raised. Councilmember Rao, Councilmember Sebastian, and Councilmember Willis.
Okay, we will go in that order then. Councilwoman Rao.
Just for clarification, I do concur with the majority of the recommendations that were outlined by Councilwoman Willis. I just want to give consideration to 2 things before we move forward with the vote on amending the agenda. First, I think the land bank, is my understanding, actually should have been under the city managers. Item number 3. But I will say for MS4 Stormwater, while I appreciate the EPD being here, and I think that's important, the presentation I wanted the staff or the consultant in Public Works to present really outlines where we are in the process. And so while they're here, if people have questions afterwards, but the presentation that needs to be heard is how we're operating our MS4.
All right, thank you. I think we can do both, but thank you, Councilman Sebastian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was one that requested of staff the issue of the land bank before. This was a conversation very, very early up in the spring. I think it's important for our city, and I could see it being even overly important for District 4. That's just why I had the conversation with staff. I did not know it was going to be placed on this agenda or where it's going to be placed on the agenda. So if it's a city manager item and we want to keep it, we can. If not, then we try and regroup and figure out how we do this. I'm also sensitive to whenever we invite outside guests in our house, how they're treated. So I'll just say that as we go along, let's take that into consideration as well. But in terms of sticking to the rules and the regulations according to what we pass, we really need to tighten that before we go with these public agendas.
All right, Councilwoman Willis.
Thank you for recognizing me, Mayor. Before I make my comment, I would like to ask for our city clerk, Mr. Corey Adams. Mr. Corey Adams, can you please speak to what we adopted on last council meeting relative to the work session? Because if I'm not mistaken, there is a section dedicated specifically to the city manager to provide updates. And most work sessions throughout the 538 cities in the state of Georgia are pretty much ran majority by city manager to work through operations and staff recommendations. So if you could speak to that, and then I have a comment, and then we can move on. Will you allow Clerk Adams to speak to the work session process?
Absolutely. Clerk Adams.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Councilmember Willis, for that question. As you know, the work session policy did go into effect, effective with a vote at the August 23rd council meeting. And you should see it on your screen now. But it outlines the order of business as listed on your screen, with city manager items, presentations at the request of mayor and/or city council. As was mentioned previously, not to exceed 2 presentations by the mayor and 2 at the request of the city council. And then the executive session and the city attorney report, and then adjournment. I think what Councilmember Willis was referencing was number one, city manager items. The city manager has wide latitude to define what staff reports are listed and what presentations are made. And then there were two other categories in the legislation that provides for an update on city initiatives aligned with the strategic plan, as well as any briefing on city contracts and purchases exceeding $25,000.
Thank you, Clerk Adams. And so respectfully, Mayor Khalid, you know, I know you have your opinions and your thoughts, and you like to do what you think, but we have rules, we have ordinances, we have resolutions, and we adopt those, and we should govern by what we adopt. And, you know, if you felt the need to add additional or more details to things that we request, then respectfully send emails to the person who's making the request. Respectfully pick up the phone and make recommendations to the person that is making the request. That was not done. And I specifically requested via email on August 23rd that we have a transition plan outlined to this council and work session by Public Works, and we have a right-of-way plan outlined to this council by Public Works. Those were my specific requests. I didn't request for anything else. Had you called me or emailed me or communicated with me, I may have taken some of the things that you took upon yourself to put on this work session into consideration. But in order to streamline things, this is why we have a process put in place. So my motion is what my motion is. It has been seconded, and I will appreciate at this time if you call for the vote.
All right, so I'm just going to respond to that. You have these 5 items up on the screen. Would you just go back to the page where we have the items, Mr. Clerk? No, the resolution. If you would just bring that resolution back up. And it is. I do find it regretful that we're at a place where we're spending 20 minutes arguing about the order of items on the agenda, but nothing is actually going to change. The city manager, in your city manager report, you will be able to talk about the land bank, and we'll be able to hear that presentation in the land bank. Council gets 2 items, so we will talk about the Public Works transition and whatever Councilwoman Willis wants to talk about. She got her 2 items in first, so whatever Councilwoman Willis wants to talk about, those can be her 2 items. I get 2 items at the end, and so I'll just make my 2 items the monkeypox update and the stormwater report from the EPD. Those will be my 2 items. And I think doing that, we're reordering the agenda, but substantively, everything is just going to remain on the agenda as is, with the exception of Jacobs, who is not here today anyway.
Point of order, Mayor, that was not my motion.
I hear you. I am just trying to make sure that everyone who has come to present gets a chance to present today.
Point of order, Mayor, that was not my motion.
I hear you.
And my motion was seconded.
It was, and we're in discussion. Councilwoman Williams.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I call for the question.
I second.
Okay, question has been called and seconded.
Roll call vote. Councilmember Rao,
Yes.
Councilmember Gums,
Yes.
Councilmember Willis,
Yes.
Councilmember Sebastian,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Reeves,
Aye.
Councilmember Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, the question has been called.
All right, and so would you please call the vote and let me know what the agenda, what we're voting on, what the actual agenda is going to be now.
Yes, the motion as I recorded it was a motion by Councilmember Willis, seconded by Councilmember Rao, to remove the presentations by Jacobs and the items listed under that item. To move the sanitation report to the city manager staff reports, and to remove the MS4 stormwater report, as well as the land bank authority report.
Correction. We said that the MS4 report should be done by staff.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so if we vote this, we're going to remove the land bank discussion and we're going to remove the EPD from the meeting.
And Jacob's items.
Jacobs isn't here, so but we're going to remove I just want to be clear, we're voting to remove the discussion of the land bank and the EPD from this meeting. That correct, Mr. Adams?
Yes, my understanding was the MS4 stormwater was going to be presentation moved to the city manager. I didn't know if that's what council member.
Yes.
All right, please call the vote.
Roll call vote. Councilmember Rao,
Yes.
Councilmember Gomes,
Yes.
Councilmember Sebastian. I'm
Yes.
sorry, Councilmember Willis,
Yes.
Councilmember Sebastian,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Reeves,
Aye.
Councilmember Williams.
Yes.
That motion as amended was approved unanimously.
All right. Well, Mr. Clerk, please sound the next item.
Okay, the next item is Roman numeral 3, city manager's items. And Madam City Manager, did you want to, how do you wish to proceed in terms of your items listed under the city manager? I have the finance monthly report, your report, as well as now the MS4 stormwater report and the sanitation report.
Yes, so just so I'm clear, is it okay if the Public Works Insource timeline, that's going to remain under section number 7?
You're the city manager. That's fine. I mean, that's up to the, mayor. She's the city manager.
Okay, well, I'll have Mr. Valenzuela do the stormwater report after. So Clerk, as you mentioned, I'll have Ms. Dixon go first. I'll go second. We'll have the sanitation update by Assistant City Manager Don Toms, and then we will have the stormwater information presented by the Public Works Director, Antonio Valenzuela. You can proceed, Ms. Dixon. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, City Manager, and good afternoon again, Mayor, Council. I'd like to present our financial for July 30th, 2022. And so we're going to start with our general fund summary of revenues, where we show that property tax have come in at $33,450,745, which is pretty much over the 100% of what was actually budgeted for FY22. Same thing for our motor vehicle, which come in at $1,604,302. We had a budget of $1,600,000, so 100% collection of that budget amount. Our franchise tax right now is coming in at $4,881,429 with budgeted $7,500,000. So we're at 65% on that. Our local option sales tax, which is lost, we had a budget of $22 million. It is coming in at $21,483,589. So at a 98% collection for FY22. Business and occupation at $2,481,316. So we're at about 99% collection on the budgeted amount. Other taxes have actually come in over at $7,858,589. So overage of about 6%. We budgeted $7,400,000. Licenses and permits have come in as well at over at $3,822,531. So 3% over the budgeted amount of $3,729,000. IGA with FID for the fire in city of Atlanta have come in at 502, 511, so at 74%. Charges for services have actually come in over at 5,437,161 of the budget at 4,904. So an overage of about 11%, so 101%, 11%. Other revenues actually have come in under, which is actually just going to be a part of our transfers. So that number will go up, but as of July, those transfers have not been posted just yet, but we're showing posted of 1,882,640, so it's 18%. So a total revenue collected at 88%, 83,404,813. Okay. And here we have the general fund summary of expenditures based on we have our district totals, which is at 58%. So they've expended 757,085, and that's over the course of the 7 districts. And then we show here, just going to highlight some of the major ones here. We have the mayor in at 192,687, which is 74%. We have risk management at 1,885,876. So they've expended about 95% of their budget. And then move down to municipal court, where they've expended 509,818, 65% of their budget. We have public works at 8,867,669, which is 82% of their budget as we get ready to prepare for the end of the year. The next one I'd like to highlight is going to be our community and regulatory affairs at 2,385,686, so 76% of their budget. And then we go down to our debt service interfund transfers, which is at 13,063,854, 99%. So overall, the general fund expenditures, we're at 66%. So 61,431,665. Okay, and this here shows what the first section shows property taxes. So the billing amount for FY21 was 32,975,343. So as you can see, we break it down based on the personal and real taxes come in at 31,384,416. And then here we break it and show the west side TAD at 111,664, and then the east side TAD at 38,039. So these numbers added together was give us the getting the balance that was shown early in the presentation. And we can see here where 2020 tax collections have come in at 99.1 at 15%. 2019 has come in at 29,311,274, which is 99.2%. 2018 at 28,673,89, so that's 99.93%. And finally 2017, 14,319,58, so 99.94%. All right, and so this is our general fund year-to-date lost revenue, and we can see if we'll make note of June, we've actually received 2,793,289. So this is 9.1% over the same time in FY21, which was actually 2,560,204. Next slide for me. Okay. All right. And so here, year to date, T-SPLOST, we show the revenue collected as of July 31st at 1,831,139 in June. And that was 7.4% over the collection same time in 2021 of 1,704,920. Okay, and this is just kind of showing us a graph bar chart here of our general fund summary of expenditures that I went over early in the presentation. Okay, and this is just all the a summary of all the revenues and expenditures for our different funds. And I've gone through the general fund, but we can see that just looking at our blighted properties, 300,000 there. Confiscated assets as far as what they have actually brought in year to date, 13,385. Want to highlight the American Rescue Plan, which is 5,676,259, which that's the second trunket that the city actually received earlier this year. And then we have restricted grants at 1,024,084. And then I want to go down and highlight the T-SPLOS, which budget of 8 million, but we've actually here as of July, it was 15,858,409. And then we'll just go down and show the capital URA, which is 8,158,475, which has actually been for its revenue. And then I'm gonna move on. So all funds for total revenue is 118,864,264. And then we'll go over to the expenditures. As I said, I've already gone through the general fund, but we will highlight on the E911 fund. We've actually spent 478,352 as of end of July. Restricted grants, we spent 599,793. Hotel motel, we've actually spent 388,646. And then as of local capitals, we've actually spent 4,550,635 of the budgeted 12.3 million. And then on the URA of the budgeted 5.7 million, we've spent 1,181,343. Solid waste spent 368,21. So a total expenditures of 69,433,636. So if you took a look at the revenue over what has actually been spent, you can see that we've actually spent less, which is 49,436.28. We've taken in more revenue than the city has actually spent. Okay, and then this is just to highlight the confiscated asset here to show that they initially started with a bank balance of 282,920.76. They brought in July in federal funds $1,006, which they have already potentially going to use some of these confiscated funds, which they did bring back before council with approval to use that for the purchase of some vehicles. So that amount will change. And so at this time, I'd like to give something, and I do apologize that I didn't add it there, but I know it had been asked about the ARP funds, and we're still at the same place where the city has only spent 115,000 of those ARP funds, which was the 15,000 once again back in November, then 100,000 for the vaccine incentive program. And they were in the process of purchasing to try to get the RFP finished up for to distribute the food to the community for the rent and mortgage assistance. So that we had to run it through legal, so kind of had a hiccup in that process, but it is in the ending phase and be getting ready to roll that process out. As far as with the Development Authority, we're still at the point of where they have spent about 212,000 of their budgeted funds. And two, I wanted to make note, because I had made note of this back in March, about the funds that have actually come in from the Development Authority. So we did receive those funds back in December of 2021. And also as a part of my presentation, wanted to go over and talk about the purchases that have taken place that were over $25,000 as requested in the new format. So I'll start with the police department, where they've actually purchased 40 SUVs at $1,589,098. They purchased 30 SUVs for $1,153,596, and then one truck for $39,528.60. And that was the police department. Moving on to the fire, they actually purchased one ladder truck for $1,109,962, and this was for truck 11. Then they actually purchased two pumpers, engine 5 and engine 11, for $684,295 each. And then they purchased one Rosenbauer engine 8 for $540,000. 4 Kia Sportage for CRR inspectors at $129,000 for all 4. And then they had 2 Ford Explorers, one for the emergency management director and one for the assistant fire chief at $64,000 for both of those vehicles. And then the last purchase took place on September the 6th, and it was for the Old National Highway and the Jonesboro Road 9-acre property. And the total amount paid for that purchase was $1,426,219.24. And so that concludes my presentation for today.
All right, Councilwoman Williams.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Ms. Dixon,
Yes.
I believe I must have zoned out for a moment, but could you go back and clarify something for me? I thought I heard you say that the mayor's budget, the mayor has spent 175% of his budget. Is that correct?
Oh, no, ma'am, that wasn't. Will you go back up for me, City Clerk? Go back to right here. No, the mayor actually is 74%. So he's good with his expenditures.
I figured I must have zoned out because there was no way that could be correct. So thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
Thank you. And just a point of information to that, Ms. Dixon, 25% of my budget was spent by the previous mayor before I entered office. So I've only actually spent about 54% myself.
That is correct.
Thank you. Councilwoman Rao.
Thank you. As it relates to 66% of our budget being spent, and we're now, a few weeks out from year-end closeout, will there be a budget modification that will come before council at our next meeting? Because there are a couple things that I wanted to be on somebody's radar. The first, I had requested you all look at some kind of shade structure over the park equipment at Trauma Cry. I had a number of seniors reaching out with concerns about not being able to utilize it because of the heat. So it needs some kind of shade structure. And I'm just wondering where we are in terms of closeout. I know, our books are shutting down for the year. And there are also, improvements that need to be, some capital improvements. Will you and the city manager bring any recommendations to deal with some of those capital improvements that we need?
Councilman Rao, yes, we will. If there's anything that needs to roll over or need to be handled, that will be, yes, brought before council as part of the year-end closeout.
Okay. So that's at the meeting later this month. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And another follow-up question, Ms. Dixon, the unused funds in the council budgets, can they just roll over to next year's budget if people have unused funds from FY 2022?
Mayor, the process, the way that it handles is that all unused funds actually roll back into prior years. So it goes into fund balance. The only thing that rolls forward is projects. So if it was a project or project based, that's when the items are actually carried forward. But it's not that if you have 25,000 left over, then we carry it forward and add it to the next year's budget.
Got it. So without any intervention from council, you lose it or use it or lose it.
Correct.
Thank you. All right, Councilwoman Willis.
Yes, just for clarification, I just would like to ask District 6 Council Member Natasha Williams, when you took office and as of January, did you inherit 100% of your budget?
Thank you, Councilwoman Willis, for the question. I would have to go back and I'm going to have to look at the paperwork. I believe that I inherited 75% of the budget, but the caveat I would add to that number is that I have been waiting on a transition audit since February. That still has not been completed. And so the information that I have in my possession is very minimal. And I think until I can get all of the information and reports that I have requested, assume 75%, but I would at this point take it with a grain of salt.
And so I would like to state for the record that there is legislation in place that states that during the newly adopted budget year, when there is an election, so in this case it will be 2024, the council person that is outgoing or the elected official that is outgoing is only allowed to spend 25% of the adopted budget. And so that is what our process allows for. So with that being said, the outgoing mayor only spent 25% of the budget because that's all that outgoing mayor was allowed to spend. The outgoing council person, former council person of District 6, was only allowed to spend 25% of that budget. And so that is what the our ordinances provide for. And then you are correct. We all are waiting not only for the transaction audit report from out of District 6, but we are also waiting for the DA to provide an update on an investigation out of the District 6 budget report from the previous council person. Thank you. I yield.
Speaking as that previous council person, I will just make note that I actually spent no money from the FY 2023 budget, including my staff. I released my staff at the end of fiscal year 2021 because we knew we had this election coming up. So Councilwoman Williams, you should have 100% of your budget. We closed out our books. There were still some unprocessed receipts from FY 2021, but we actually closed out our books to not spend $1 of your budget, and even left you some furniture. Some of it you didn't want, but I hope that you do have all of your budget there.
Mayor Khalid.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Please sound the next item. Or do we have more from the city manager's report?
Yes.
Madam?
Yes, the next item is the city manager's monthly report.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I provided to you as requested notes for my city manager's report, but I did want to highlight a few things. I wanted to share with you all that we had a very successful City of South Fulton Job Fair and Career Expo. It was held on Wednesday, August the 31st. Over at Welcome All, we had a goal of fulfilling 150 plus vacant positions within various departments of our city. We had about 237 individuals to pre-register and checked in and attended. We had 16 other individuals who came on site. We tried to do our very best with the assistance of our communications department and getting the word out about our job fair. And we had 2 digital billboards promoting the event. We had a live radio broadcast from 107.5 FM. And we want to thank Junior with the Steve Harvey Morning Show for coming out. And we are looking forward to another successful job fair in the spring of 2023. So I want to thank our staff who assisted in planning that event. The other thing I wanted to mention, as you all know, we just finished our first public hearing for the budget. I do want to remind the public that our second public hearing will be on Wednesday, September 21st at 6:30 p.m. at City Hall. That is going to be an in-person meeting. And we encourage you to review the draft budget document, budget book that's online at www.cityofsouthfultonga.gov. Ms. Slayton Dixon did hit upon the rental and mortgage assistance. We hope to have that on the agenda for the 27th. We did have to go back and do an RFP process, and staff has evaluated those proposals, and it is expected to be on the agenda on the 27th. Staff, along with Atlas, did perform a facilities condition audit at Wolf Creek Amphitheater this past Friday, September the 9th. This was a full assessment, and they expect to have the report detailing the assessment within the next week to 2 weeks. So we will make sure we provide that to the mayor and council. I did want to announce that the Public Works Department is planning a fall cleanup day. That event will be held on Saturday, October the 15th from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. There will be 2 locations for the fall cleanup: 3070 Merck Road and Creel Park, which is located at 2775 Creel Road. We are asking seniors who would like to have their trash pickup as seniors 65 and older. And Mr. Valenzuela, please correct me if I'm wrong, but that is seniors 65 and older. We ask that you will please contact our Public Works Department to get on our list to have your items picked up. And for more information, you can call 470-919-3664. 470-919-3664. Items that will be accepted will be bulky items, cardboard, furniture, paint, garbage, tires with a maximum of 4 tires. And then items not accepted will be commercial vehicles or rented trucks, yard waste, ammunition, biohazard or biomedical waste, batteries, construction debris, and hazardous chemicals. And again, you can find all of that information on our city website. I did provide through the clerk's office as an attachment to the agenda, the Public Works Transition Plan, which is on the agenda for our staff to review with you on today. They will be discussing some key areas of operation during their presentation this afternoon. And then the last thing I wanted to remind the public that the September 27th City Council meeting will be in person. That meeting will begin at 4 p.m. at Welcome All Park facility, the multipurpose room. And the next thing I wanted to go over, based upon the new format, is an update on our city initiatives aligned with our strategic plan. I wanted to share, of course, remind the public that we have our goal number 1 for our strategic plan is to invest in developing strong teams. Goal number 2, grow infrastructure and solidify finances. Goal number 3, increase community collaboration and quality of life. Goal number 4 is to focus on economic development. And then goal number 5 is to create an efficient government. And in regards to goal number 1, I wanted to, one of the objectives or projects is to implement an internal newsletter for team to help increase awareness of events. Our community, our communications and external affairs department is doing that through our daily drip. So we want to remind the council to please make sure you check your email and remind our staff that is an internal electronic newsletter to get information. Goal number 2, I just wanted to hit upon one of the initiative is to secure federal funding for training and other designations such as LCI and CDBG. I did want to, remind the public that we do have an LCI project on Old National, and also CDBG. We are currently receiving funding from Fulton County and from HUD, and also another a good project that I wanted to make sure we highlighted is the American Rescue Plan Act. We received $11.3 million, and Ms. Slayton Dixon went over that. And we, of course, have approved projects that the council has approved based upon a recommendation from my office to use those funds. Goal number 2, again, I wanted to highlight something that Ms. Slayton Dixon mentioned to the council. We closed on the 9 acres on the Old National Highway and Jonesboro Road. We paid $1.4 million. And one of the proposed recommendations for that location would be a public safety headquarters, although we will continue to work with our police chief and our economic development director, but that is certainly a benefit for our city that we have that land available to us now. Goal number 3, in regards to increased community collaboration and quality of life, under our projects, improve park safety by better interfacing with police and parks. Of course, we have our camera project. I've sent through our notes and also through previous updates about the security camera project that's in the works. I want to thank our IT director and our police department staff and our park staff who are helping assist with that, and we will continue to provide the council updates on that initiative. Another one under that section is to create a blighted housing program. As the council know, that we have been very successful in removing some and doing some demolition of blighted housing. From my understanding, today we were demoing a house in District 6, and within the next 2 weeks, we will demo a blighted property in District 1. We have about $300,000 that was allocated to that, and with these upcoming items or locations, pardon me, we should be spending about $297,000 of those funds. And I could go on and on and on, but I just wanted to highlight those items. And I did want to get some feedback from the council if this is the type of information you're requesting when the legislation was created in regards to an update on city initiatives aligned with strategic plan. So Mayor, at this time, I'll take any questions. And again, I'd like some feedback from the council if this is the type of information that you are expecting from us. Thank you.
I see Councilwoman Willis.
Thank you for recognizing me, Mayor. Ms. Sally Jones, so I know one of the categories is to update the council with any contracts that will be coming before us that are $25K or more. Do we not have any contracts that will be placed on the next agenda that will be $25K or more? Because we typically have them every agenda, and I just don't want us to be shocked if we see anything, because the only thing I've heard you mention was the acquisition, the closing on Old National.
One that I know of that will be coming, as I mentioned, the rental and mortgage assistance, we had to do an RFP. And so for the administration of that program, we expect to have that contract with the vendor that selected or recommended for being selected on the agenda on September the 27th. Again, we were kind of unsure what you were wanting, because we didn't know how far, if you wanted to do it within the last 30 days, within the last 60 days. So that's some of the feedback that would be helpful to me and the staff.
I think that what the intent of the legislation is, you know, when we get the regular agenda, typically it's maybe on a Friday, and then we have the council meeting on a Tuesday. And so, and sometimes there are questions regarding these expenditures that are over 25K that we have to vote on. And so we are trying to work through those contracts and those questions. So if we have a work session, if you bring that stuff to us during a work session, then that will cut down on, we have an opportunity to ask you questions and work through any questions we may have, or any contracts, large contracts that may be coming before us. That's the whole purpose of doing it.
Okay, thank you for the explanation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your report.
Mayor Pro Tem Reeves.
Thank you, Mayor, for recognizing me. Madam Jones, as when we having our council meeting at Welcome All, I know this is one of the big questions that the constituents have asked, is there was some streaming issues from the last one that was streaming live. Has those issues been resolved, and will we be able to stream live the council meeting on next week?
Yes, and as a result of that situation, it was my understanding, and Mr. Neymar Strickland, please correct me if I'm wrong, that was an issue related to AT&T. It wasn't anything on our part, from my understanding. So the answer is we have every anticipation that there will be live streaming and there should not be any problems.
Thank you much. And then, and I didn't see this in the report, but were we able to close on the Old National property as well, or the Burdette Road?
Mr. Hyman, can you assist me with where we are with that property?
The Councilman Reeves, the resolution that council passed the last regular session put that in motion such that once we have the closing date is up till September 26th. It could have happened sooner, and that's why I want to get the resolution, but it's on track to close.
Thank you. I yield.
No problem.
All right, Council. I'm sorry, Madam City Manager, did you want to go to your next item?
Yes, sir. The next item would be the sanitation update by Mr. Don Toms, Assistant City Manager. I believe he has 2 slides that City Clerk that we will need to pull up, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm just going to walk through where we are currently. So as noted at our prior council meeting, we have closed the RFP for the solid waste providers, and the staff has gone through each of the proposals and has started to rank them. Actually, they have just about completed that process. For the residential services, we are looking to include the weekly household trash, the minimum of monthly curbside bulk waste collection, and are currently evaluating the curbside, whether it will be weekly or monthly yard waste collection. And we are looking at that based on the provider's cost versus the 12-month benefits. So we still have a few questions to iron out with that potential service. And then of course, going through convenience centers for recycling. If you would go to the next slide. Staff is moving forward with discussing timeframes and services with the top bidder to clarify the proposal. We are looking to provide a full presentation to the city council at a October work session. And right now, by examining the information, there is a potential to recommend a single provider due to the gap in price and services. Looking through the proposal, it is anticipated that right now there is a need for 90 days to order the approximate 40,000 plus custom 95-gallon carts, which would have the city logo hot stamped in it. And that way it would provide a uniform look of all the curbs, or as some people call it, the Herbie Kirby's, across the entire city. And we also want to ensure that we're able to roll out residential education upon the council taking a vote. We are also anticipating, based on some council comments and also some information obtained through citizens, to send a citywide mail out on all the changes. I've also mentioned at prior meetings that in addition to all the education we are going to provide to the citizens, both via mail out, doing in-person meetings, and also virtual, and placing things on our website. Once we roll out the cards, we will have a waterproof sticker on the lid of the card that provides all the key information, such as dates of service, what can and cannot be placed in the cards, contact information, and anything else that is pertinent. And what we will do is we will take that information, circulate that to both mayor and council and the public. That way we can receive feedback before we work with the provider to order those stickers. We want to make sure that we are providing good information that everyone needs. That is where we are in the process and the steps to bring this forward to the mayor and council to either select or reject the proposal.
Mr. Mayor, the next item is the stormwater report by Mr. Antonio Valenzuela, our Public Works Director. And his presentation was actually embedded into his presentation that will be later on in the agenda. So the clerk's office, Mr. Valenzuela, may need your assistance in just telling them what slide number to go to.
Okay, if we could, before we go to that, I wanted to see if there were any questions about the sanitation, the sanitation update. Okay, seeing none, I did have a couple of questions. Mr. Toms, when do you have a date that you expect we'll make an announcement?
Make an announcement of the selection, Mayor? I'm sorry. Are you asking when we'll make an announcement of the selection? Oh, I would think we would present that to the council at the work session.
In October.
Yes, sir.
All right, and then we expect that the new service would start in January?
That is something that we would discuss with council and then work with legal to put that in contract with the provider.
All right, and then finally, an issue of great concern for constituents contacting me is accountability for missed collections, or leftover trash in the street. All of that would be addressed in the actual contract.
All that would be addressed in the contract with any penalties. We will also provide 2 sets of phone numbers, both a special called service dedicated to solid waste, and then also a internal staff number.
Got it. And that number would be on the sticker on the trash cans?
That is my desire, yes, sir.
All right. And if people call 311, our 311 number, they'll be routed to wherever the appropriate place is.
Yes, sir.
All right. I'll have more questions when we have the contract, but thank you so much.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Madam City Manager.
Councilmember Rao had her hand raised.
Okay. Dr. Rao?
Thank you for recognizing me. This is a question for Assistant City Manager. You mentioned that the possibility of one provider based on the gap. So are you saying that in terms of pricing, there was a significant difference in price and or service proposed based on what you received in terms of the proposal?
Yes, ma'am, that is what I'm saying. After the committee reviewed the proposal, there was a very significant gap. And the provider that gave us the best price and service can also handle the entire area.
Okay. Well, I look forward to hearing more. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
All right, Madam City Clerk. Is there anyone else? I'm sorry. I have just for the record, the queue is open, and it's a little bit easier when folks use the queue to see who has their hands raised and the order in which they're raised. Otherwise, I just have to toggle back and forth. So I would ask people if it's possible to use the queue, but I'll just keep toggling through these screens as well. I don't see any other hands. Do you, Mr. Clerk?
I do not.
All right, go ahead, Madam City Manager.
The next item is Mr. Antonio Valenzuela presenting on the Stormwater Program.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, residents of City of South Fulton. Actually, if you will allow me to do the Public Works Plan of Action presentation, in which the solid waste is a part of this presentation, and as part 4 under the Public Works presentation, will that be feasible, or would you like me to bring it up, that presentation, and reformat what we have for Public Works?
It's whatever Councilwoman Willis's pleasure is. This is her item.
So Councilwoman Willis, under the Public Works execution plan on this presentation, I have an overall overview of Public Works. Then I have the call center, the right-of-way maintenance, traffic operations and maintenance, MS4, and then have questions and answers.
You can just go ahead, just for the sake of confusion and for the sake of time, just go ahead and present your presentation the way you have it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Clerk, will you please put the presentation up? Public Works execution plan going forward. I just wanted to thank you, all my staff, consultants, and contractors that we have been working in conjunction of our city manager, assistant city manager, and others to bring this to reality for the city of South Fulton. It is what I'm about to present to you is a hybrid approach, taking into consideration how can we do better, how can we save the funds for the city, and how can we do better and bring the city and Public Works as the #1 public works in the state of Georgia and go nationwide afterwards. Next slide, please. Public Works, we assess issues, evaluate alternatives, and implement solutions. I want to make sure that going forward, we're able to receive calls and handle any safety issues immediately. Any issues that requires standard operation maintenance will be handled within a week, and anything beyond that point will be considered a capital project where perhaps it requires a design, procurement, and construction, and it will be handled as a case-by-case scenario, as each case is different. But as a summary, Public Works at a glance, we have goals and objectives, customer service reimagined, rights-of-way maintenance, traffic operations maintenance separate storm sewer system, which is MS4, and the solid waste. Next slide, please. Public Works at a glance. What do we do? Just brought it up for our community and you all of what entitled Public Works. We start with planning and engineering, traffic and engineering and operations, solid waste, administration, construction operations, right-of-way maintenance, and MS4 and miscellaneous that we're here to support any department that the city might need, where the city might need our support. What do we have since, a few years ago, we only had very few people under Public Works, and we were asked to bring the services in-house. What do we have currently? We have 12 current employees, 2 are in the process of being hired, and the new requests are 4 for construction operations and maintenance. For traffic operations and maintenance, we are fully equipped with 3 employees. The solid waste, we have 1, 2 pending, and 1 request, and administration are 4. Please keep in mind of this plan of action. It is a hybrid approach. So we bring in key elements and key consultants and contractors that can provide to us all the needed services for the city. Enhancing services. As I stated before, our primary goal was, how can we do better? Where can we save funds, and how can we make our city look much better or what it looks now? Traffic engineering and operations, as you know, we're growing. We're in need of having a 24/7 traffic engineering support. It is the goal. We were able to reach that point, and going forward, as after October 1st, we will have a 24/7 traffic engineering support. Right-of-way maintenance. Non-subdivision roads and state routes, as you have asked from Public Works to provide those services. In the past, we provided every 4 or 5 weeks. This time, we're coming back to you starting October 1st, we will be doing every 2 weeks. Street sweeping. In the past, we will sweep twice a year. Then it was tried to sweep 4 times a year. With the new plan of action, we're going to be sweeping the streets from Monday through Friday, sweeping all curb and gutter roads. The primary reason of sweeping the street is to ensure that our inlets are clear. We only want to have storm water going into our inlets. That is the purpose of street sweeping of the gutters. Dirt roads. We still have a good number of dirt roads. We're going to have a plan of action to maintain those dirt roads 4 times a year. We're going to ensure that the roads are properly maintained, as well as dust control. Little pickup, we will do every other week. So we'll be in conjunction with the right-of-way maintenance. You will have an opportunity to discuss and see a presentation on right-of-way. CAP T+ projects. As you know, we have been dealing with information issues. We heard what you want to see, and going forward, we're going to be able to present on the website, on GIS, and other sources where our residents, mayor and council will have access to up-to-date information on all our projects that we have currently under T+1 and T+2, and projects that are federal funded, as well as some other projects that, from a maintenance point of view, becomes a capital improvement project. Medians and roundabouts. As you know, the city of South Fulton is responsible for maintaining the landscapes. Maintaining medians and roundabouts is not a matter of cutting the right of way and move on. We got to keep those medians and roundabouts as a landscape mode. So we're doing everything possible, and currently we're doing every once a week, and we're planning of enhancing better what we have. And I believe our current medians and some of the roundabouts that we are responsible for maintaining have stepped up and look much better for the city. With that said, I would like to yield at this point, and I will, I'm sorry, Mr. Clerk, please, next slide. With that said, at this point, I would like to yield and bring Ms. Anderson, Deputy Director for General Services, so she can go over more detail on what is the call center coming up for us starting October 1st. Ms. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Valenzuela. Good evening, Mayor, Council, City Manager, and residents. As part of the Public Works Execution Plan, the call center functions will be provided through turnkey solutions for the first quarter for October, November, and December through their municipality call center, which is a provider that outsources 311 type capabilities for municipalities that want to offer excellence in citizen services in the most effective and efficient way. Currently, some of their clients include the City of Atlanta, DeKalb County, Fulton County, Clayton County, Union City, and the City of Forest Park. Turnkey within the first 3 quarters of the month will provide a virtual agent services where the agent will answer frequently asked questions when the caller requests specific items such as where you located, where are your hours, whatever script each department provide, the virtual agent will be able to answer those questions. And if they request to speak to the department specifically, the call will be transferred to that specific department. Each department, as I stated, will provide their FAQs for the virtual script. The department specific calls will be transferred to a designated staff member for the department. And during this first 3 months, the See-Click-Fix function will be streamlined to take specific requests and not be used as a messaging center to enter when they've asked to speak to someone specifically within the city of South Fulton. As I stated, the virtual assistance will last to October 1st. The live agent we will have starting in January of 23 with a 12/7 schedule. They will be operating from 7 to 7 days a week. This will allow each department to basically own their calls, and the type of request that normally comes in through these functions are information requests where citizens receive the information they need immediately, or service requests where citizens' information is entered into the system and forwarded to the right department via email or fulfillment. Referrals where citizens is given the needed phone number and can be transferred to the current party. And complaint, compliant, and comments will be escalated to department head for resolution. Within this process, each individual call will have a path to go forward within the workflow. The citizens and the patrons will call the turnkey virtual agent. It will be processed through their cloud platform to answer those questions and transfer it to City Hall personnel if needed. As far as to highlight the number of calls that come into the City of South Fulton on a monthly or daily basis, as for the month of August, the call center received 1,897 calls. 534 of those calls were abandoned calls where they either hung up before someone got to them or hung up after the phone was answered. That's an average of about 62 calls per day. With the city of 8,000 residents, that's a low number. So just to give you the highlight of that, and the percentage of where those calls should be directed to, Public Works is about 38%, Code Enforcement is 23%, CDRA is 12%, Police Department is 11%, and Courts is 9%. Next slide. Again, a little bit about this process. The virtual agent provides the benefit of having a 24/7 service for citizens. It speaks in a natural, easy to understand language. It can answer all calls and transfer calls directly to each department. It speaks in 130 languages, it's optional. It can text information to callers if they request. For instance, a caller that calls for the recreation center after hours can be texted the number to call directly the next day, or can be texted a web address if inputted in the script. It uses natural language processing to analyze citizens' intent, sentiment, and emotions, and matches it with desired outcome. This is a cost-effective method, an option. Again, you see, once whatever we provide as the FAQs for each department, it would be able to answer those calls immediately, give them the information that they need, and then to transfer those that ask for specific individuals, such as Public Works, they'll be transferred to the Public Works Department for further resolution. Over the last 3 months, the average number of calls into the city is about 2,033. Again, that's over the month of June, July, and August. As far as next steps with the call center function, the departments again will need to provide the personnel that will be assigned their respective main number. The department needs to update the C-Click-Fix categories to support their respective departments. Will be attached with more information. Information technology will update the number assigned. I do want to point out that the number that the citizens call now to get to the call center will not change. We own that number that was normally previously transferred to Jacobs. It is our 311 number. So that number will be forwarded to Turnkey Solutions. So there will be a smooth transition into calling the city. That will not change. Each department will be assigned a 311 email address and a 311 number for those calls to be transferred to the department. Again, for further resolution that's being handled through IT. Also, the chat feature for the web page currently that's managed through outsourced services now will be disabled. That was a function that they provided earlier this year. That will be removed from the website. There will not be that chat function, but again, once they call the city number, they will be able to receive a text. The virtual agent will ask them, do you want this information text to you? Please provide your phone number, and they will text the information to them. Public Works and Information Technology will provide the vendor with the departmental details on what numbers to transfer Public Works calls to code enforcement, CDRA, and so forth. City manager communication to the council and constituents on the upcoming changes. That information will be provided in next steps as well. Redirect the main 311 number to the virtual call center. Update the C-Click-Fix process. That will be one of our main focuses going forward with further detail on those specific things that need to be reported to Public Works or whomever for action, and it will be based on our service level agreements, which will be emergency type request, routine maintenance type request, and capital projects request. Again, this process will take effective October 1st and go through October, November, December, and then as of January, the goal is to implement the live agent on a 12/7 basis. Thank you. Antonio, I'm turning it over to you.
Thanks so much, Ms. Anderson. Mr. Clerk, if you don't mind, please, let's move on into the right-of-way maintenance. Mr. Mayor and Council.
Wait. I'm going to ask for a moment the council's pleasure. We did just hear a bunch of information. We have the call center, we have the right-of-way maintenance, and we have the stormwater. So we got 2 more presentations to go through. Should we pause and take questions about the call center, or do you all want to hold all questions until the end of all of the presentations?
I have questions now. I'm sorry.
I see a continue. I'll just ask a quick poll. Raul says continue. What is the pleasure of the rest of the body? Could you all just let me know in the chat? Do we want to stop for questions? I think that we should, but I'm going to ask council. I got 2 continues. 1, I have questions now. Councilwoman Gums and Councilwoman Willis, do you all want to continue or stop for questions now? And Councilman.
But we can continue. I'll hold my questions to the end, but I do have questions.
Okay, looks like it's the pleasure of the body to, so everyone just keep all your questions. We have 2 more of these to go through. But we'll probably have you going back through the slides, so everyone please just stay on the call till we get to all our questions. Go ahead, Mr. Valenzuela.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The next presentation is under Mr. Dyer. He will be discussing how we're going to be doing the right-of-way maintenance. With that said, please, Mr. Dyer, take it over.
All right, thank you. Yes, we're looking forward to partnering with the city and the Public Works Department to help enhance the right-of-way on a routine maintenance level as far as initial cleanups and one-time needs and any emergencies that may come about. I know a couple years ago we had a lot of trees down, so we will have an in-house team that will be ready to take care of that in the event that it happens. As you had mentioned before, we will be adjusting to a 2-week rotation of the roadways. And I guess you can go to the next slide. Where we'll take care of the mowing, edging, blowing, spraying weeds, an additional changing of the trash cans throughout those areas, March to October, and then fall, winter, as the grass isn't growing, we will still continue that 2-week rotation, but we'll just be focused more on leaf removal and keeping the litter off of the roadways. So most of it, again, will be the right-of-way areas that do not include private properties, HOAs, or commercial properties. And we will be going through with the Public Works team to diagnose any areas that do need initial cleanup to get those areas to the level of expectation of the city, whether that be pushing brush back, removing trees that are leaning for any safety issues, or cutting them back some to create more sunlight or better visibility in given areas. And next slide. So as I had mentioned, any emergency situation, our team and the Public Works team will have 24 access to our account manager that will be the sole point of contact and be able to handle any situation that does arise, whether it be the emergency proposals that are needed, suggestions that we provide, enhancement opportunities. You will have that direct contact and access for us to get teams out to the sites and keep the roadways clear. And next slide. So under the account manager will be dedicated crews to help ensure that that 2-week cycle stays on routine, and we will be taking care of certain sections and will provide those routes to the Public Works Department. Every 2 weeks, we do a 4-day work week, knowing that there will be inclement weather so that it doesn't push to the following week. And it gives us a day buffer to be able to make sure that those routes stay on that process. As I'm sure many of you have seen our trucks around Fulton Industrial, that we have worked with the CID for a long time. So all of our team will always be in proper PPE, doing safety checks, parking in safe areas, putting cones out. to make sure that all DOT regulations are maintained. As far as startup and following the plan after start, we've already started having weekly meetings as far as onboarding, and we'll continue those until we start, and then following up through the 90 days as well, just to make sure that we are all on the same page, schedules are being followed, and make sure that expectations are being met. Next slide. So overall, we want to make sure that all of our employees and all of our equipment are always in top working condition. The equipment we put on a lease basis, so we are not running old equipment as long as you can just to make it work. Everything is traded in every couple of years, monitored, blade sharpened within our branch. And then hiring processes, you know, everybody is E-Verify. So all of our employees have gone through that process, and we have our E-Verification to cover the government standards. And next slide. So obviously there will be ongoing communications daily with the Public Works team, but we also have iPhone-enabled quality site assessment programs that allow our account managers to take pictures and make notes, suggestions, any safety issues on a more of a monthly basis to create a snapshot for the city as to services that have been done, things that are scheduled to be done, and any suggestions that our team may have. And then our team, we also have, like I said, our in-house team for tree care can handle retention ponds, tree cutbacks, enhancement opportunities. So if you need areas to have shrubs removed and replaced with better plant material, the account manager would be the sole point of contact. And that is all I have, unless there are any questions.
We're holding the questions till the end. There are questions, though. Please don't go anywhere.
Okay.
Mr. Valenzuela, Stormwater?
Mr. Mayor, at this point, the next following with the presentation will be traffic operations and maintenance, which is going to be presented by Mr. Samir Pathakar. Samir, if you don't mind, please take it over.
Absolutely. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Council, and residents. It's a pleasure to be sitting here presenting this. I'll just introduce myself real quick. My name is Samir Pathakar. I've been working within the metro area for about 15-20 years. Low Engineers has been around for 65 years and have been providing these services to several other cities like Brookhaven and Dunwoody and Stonecrest. And so I would like to go down the list of the things that we're going to be doing over the next few years. That includes traffic operations maintenance for 24/7 support, basically. And also there's miscellaneous items, including some of the management for T-Splost and capital improvement projects. Having said that, can we go to the next slide? So if you look on the left, you'll see basically between now and before the contract begins on October 1st, what we wanted to do. And we've already started sitting down with the staff and Mr. Valenzuela, and it's been really helpful. We've got a weekly meeting set up where if you remember, he mentioned that he wanted this Public Works Department to be recognized as one of the best in the state, and not just the state, eventually across the country. So our initial goal is to sit down with everyone that's a stakeholder in this, to see what the vision is, what what we're looking for the department to be, what the goals are, what the purpose is, and how the pieces fall into place. And so we thought what we would do is we would develop some metrics and basically develop metrics in terms of how many miles of roads were paved, or what all was done from a traffic operations standpoint, what kind of service was provided, what kind of service was provided for emergencies or even incident management. And based on those metrics, instead of waiting for a whole year to get a feedback on and review on how we're doing, what we would do is the first 30 days and 60 days and 90 days keep evaluating us. So we basically, now that we formed a whole big team, people are getting to know each other, understanding what's expected and trying to go beyond that is what we're trying to do. And currently there is a team in place, which we did basically transition into, or we have the new team that transitions into their place. And so we're going to take our time. There needs to be an overlap and transition between the old team and the new team, and go over projects and the project status and the budgets and what's been spent and the contractors and those kind of things. So this gives a little bit of time between now and the end of the month, and maybe even beyond that a little bit. So we don't want to sit there and say, complain, hey, this wasn't told to us, or this, we did not know about this project. We want to spend our time and understand and transition and basically make it a seamless transition between teams. Can we go to the next slide, please? So the next slide is basically just an illustration. At the core is public works, and we want to be the buffer between not just public works and all the teams that work with public works in delivering projects, but ultimately the mayor, council, and the citizens. And so we, even though we're not directly heading the procurement department, there's going to be several projects that need construction bidding and understanding the bidding process, helping the city bid those projects at the right pricing, at the right schedule, having relationship with contractors. Likewise with communications. I mean, if you want to be recognized as one of the best out there, we need to communicate that. I mean, we need to communicate not only the bad things in the newspapers, but also the good things that the Public Works Department does and have been doing on a regular basis. Sometimes it's just a matter of communications, and the city has a communications team, so we'll definitely be working with them. And with the economy, the way the economy is going right now, CDRA, they've been receiving almost 100 permits, development permits a month, and so there's plan reviews to be done, and some of those projects are on city roads and on DOT roads, and the coordination between the DOT and the Public Works Department and the CDRA becomes really critical. And then the IT piece, basically, the Public Works Department has adopted a new software called Origo, and it basically is a great software which keeps every stakeholder on the same page. It's from invoicing and accounting and project status and budgets and all of that on this. So every team member has access to it. Everyone's on the same page. There's no reason to complain when everyone has the same software. And so we will provide some IT support in terms of just making sure that the software is working, making sure that learning the software and that knowledge is transferred to every team member on the city side, on the contractor side, on the consultant side as well. Next slide, please. So basically what we've done is we've created 3 buckets, and the biggest bucket is traffic operations. Of course, I mean, you've got a 24/7 support. Signals go into flash. They happen during peak hours. You've got emergency responses to be delivered. You've got phone calls coming into the call centers, so someone needs to take those phone calls, disseminate them, send them to the right person, make sure that the job gets done on time. Of course, there's going to be a metric associated with that to make sure that the job gets done within a certain amount of time. But there's so many projects going on. From what I'm hearing, there's 50 to 70 projects that are being let, and there's plans done for that, and designs being done for that. There's value engineering done for that, and someone needs to sit down and review and make sure that it's in compliance with the city standards, in compliance with GDOT standards. So that's something that we'll be doing as well. As far as minor studies, sometimes there's quick minor studies. There's traffic calming studies. There's an intersection or a list of intersections that may have incidents or may have some crashes reported. So we'll be looking at all of those things and making recommendations in-house. Going to signals, that's a major piece. The city has 74 signals. Of course, there's going to be more signal permits in the future. Making sure that all those signals are upgraded. Some of them are on GDOT routes, some of them are on city streets. Getting coordination at this point, not all signals are coordinating with each other. They're not talking to each other. There's no fiber between all of them. At least putting a plan together, putting a budget together, making sure the council and the mayor's office understands when it comes to creating budgets, where this is going. And me and Mr. Valenzuela have spoken about it extensively. And then traffic management center, not all cities have them, but major cities and major public works departments that are highly regarded definitely have that. And it's a huge asset when it comes to incident management, but not just incident management. I mean, even signal timing. Recently there was an incident in Dunwoody where a person attacked a police officer and was running away from the police officer. In fact, he was driving away and got onto 285, and we could actually focus all the cameras behind that person and change the signal timings on the spot to be able to route the traffic smoothly, but still give police the information of where that person was, and eventually got caught on 285. So that's the biggest bucket. In the second bucket, where you have the program management and construction management for T-SPLOST and CIP projects. Basically, we've got roadway. There's currently a couple of bridge projects that are being let. So there needs to be design review of those. You have to make sure that value engineering is done. Once we've done the value engineering, it has to go out for procurement. And so we'll be providing the bidding assistance for that. Not just that, but with years of experience, we bring relationship with contractors and understanding of their side of things as well. And so trying to get the best out of every contractor on every job. We've done that on a lot of occasions. We intend to bring that to the table as well. And then the third bucket, what we have is miscellaneous or supporting services, where we have GIS. We've already started a little bit on that. It started with the basic map with accurate information on it. And then there's several other things that are coming up as far as GIS goes. And I've already discussed about IT. But then we have a robust marketing and communications team here in-house, and we don't intend to come in and take over and do anything, but whenever the communication team needs any kind of assistance, we'll be at standby for them. Any kind of social media, we've got a couple of people that are gurus when it comes to social media, making sure the right content goes out, making sure it goes out in the right channels, making sure that all the changes that are being sent on the social media side of things are also reflected on the website. So that's all we envision right now as far as what we are going to contribute. To accomplish that, we've got full-time and then part-time. Basically, what we intend to do is we intend to have a full-time traffic engineer who will act not just as an engineer, but also a coordinator between the citizens and the call center and people that are going to be actually out in the field as far as the contractors go. So we've got 3 contractors on board. We've selected the contractors based on their capabilities. Some do small jobs, but they do them well. Some contractors have more equipment. They're able to do bigger projects. We'll still be bidding them against each other when it comes to certain jobs, just to save money and make it cost efficient. The other things that we're describing, bucket number 2 and bucket number 3, those will be done based on task order basis as and when there is a need for it. I mean, there's a GIS project coming up or projects coming up, then there's need for IT, when there's need for some marketing assistance, when there's need for plan reviews, those kind of things will be done on task order basis in conjunction with the Public Works Department. And that's all I have. I'll wait for questions. Thank you so much.
All right, we've heard all of the presentations. Is that correct?
No, we have one more, I believe, Mr. Valenzuela.
Yes, Mr. Adams. Yes, at this point, I would like to bring Mr. Ray, that is going to be doing the presentation on NPDES Phase 2 Stormwater. Jason, please take it over.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council, City Manager, and citizens. I'll just give you a brief moment to introduce myself and my team. My name is Jason Ray. I'm with Integrated Science and Engineering. I've been with them for 15 plus years. I'm the Water Resources Manager and Principal here. Integrated Science and Engineering is a local company near the city of Newnan. We've been around for over 40 years. We manage 27 other phase 1 and phase 2 communities that are very similar to your community. Some of the nearby communities that we do the same service for is College Park, East Point, Fairburn, Union City. Also with me on the call to this afternoon is Lisa Perrette. She's our regulatory expert. She was with EPD for 30 plus years. In fact, she was the EPD reviewer for the city of South Fulton before she retired at EPD and joined our team. So we're excited to have her as well with her regulatory experience. Next slide, please. So just kind of give you a background on where we're at with regards to the MS4 permit. The city was designated as a phase 2 MS4 in February of 2019. And this was based on census data, the population size at the time being under 100,000, and some other census parameters. At that point, in December of 2020, the city submitted the required stormwater management program to Georgia EPD for review and approval. And that was approved, and that is the permit and stormwater management program that the city has been implementing since that submittal. The actual permit started in 2018 and carries for 5 years, but since the city was designated as a permittee in 2019, that allows them an additional year to complete some inspections that we'll talk about in a minute. But the permit, the phase 2 permit right now does expire in December of this year. And so in November of 2022, a notice of intent will need to be submitted to EPD for the next 5-year permit. So that will be completed. And then in December 2022, the existing stormwater discharge permit will expire and the new permit will become active. And at that point, the city will have 180 days to develop and submit a new stormwater management program to EPD. Next slide, please. So some of the components of the stormwater management program are here. These are all from the permit requirement. These are called minimum control measures. And within each minimum control measure, there are BMPs or best management practices that need to be completed. I'd like to applaud Antonio and his team for quickly, bringing us in and getting on top of the requirements for the stormwater management program. A lot of communities that we work for that become designated permittees, sometimes they drag their feet on getting a lot of this stuff implemented. And I've been impressed with Antonio and his team and setting up weekly meetings to make sure that elements within each one of these minimum control measures are being completed and are on task to be completed. Within each one of these minimum control measures, there are inspections that need to be completed that may be one-time inspections. Some of these are ongoing activities like citizen complaint tracking. Others are public education, public involvement activities that may take place as well. They all are ongoing activities that the city is completing on an annual basis. And a lot of these have to be reported on an annual basis and they have to be completed within the 5-year period. And then once the 5-year period stops, you start over on a new permit and you're doing a lot of the inspections over again. Next slide, please. What are some of the accomplishments so far with where we're at in this current permit period? We're coming up to like I mentioned before, we're coming up to the end of the phase 2 permit, but the city of South Fulton once again was designated as a permittee in 2019, so they have an additional year in 2023 to complete a lot of these inspections. So as soon as Antonio brought us on, many of these inspections needed to be completed. We started with dry weather screening, which has been completed for the 2021-2022 period so far. That's roughly about 60% of the city, 60% of the city. Also, the public involvement, public education programs have been implemented for this year. Some of the items that have been completed on that so far are some of the community cleanup days sponsored by the city. I know Councilwoman Rawl has been there as well. There was a community cleanup day with the Boy Scout group, with police. And there was also been recycling events. I think one was mentioned this afternoon that's going to be held also in October. The website continues to be updated. I know that right now the stormwater portion of the website is being designed. There are some elements there, which is good because that's part of a requirement for the permit. Some other activities, educational brochures in public places. City newsletter also goes out that will have stormwater educational information in the newsletter for the public as well. As far as some public involvement examples, I think we mentioned some of the community cleanup days and recycling events that have also been held so far this year. The stormwater inspections, we've completed roughly, just like the dry weather screening, about 60% of the overall inventory. We were fortunate whenever we were brought on, the city did not have an MS4 map yet. We were able to contact Fulton County because we knew that they were a permittee and that a lot of this had already been mapped. And so we were able to get their GIS data, which provided us a map to start with inspections of your storm structures, storm pipes, ditches, detention ponds. And so that's what we've been doing for the past 2 years. So far we've completed approximately 60% of that overall inventory. EPD requires that 100% of that inventory be inspected by the end of 2023. So we were on track to complete that. If you can click on that online GIS map, I'd like to show Mayor and Council this time kind of what your overall system looks like.
Mr. Adams, could you please click on the blue line online GIS map?
Can you see it?
No, sir. It may be opening it in a separate window.
Yeah, it's asking me to sign in. So
Can you provide me the ability to type it in?
And Mr. Valenzuela, out of respect for time, if necessary, we can email that information to the council.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That will work.
Right. Next slide, please. And this is a GIS map that is on the city's ArcGIS Online cloud account. So the city does have access to that. So the next steps looking forward to what we need to complete, as I mentioned before, the main thing is the inspections to get through this permit requirement. So we have about roughly 40% of the city left in 2023 to complete MS4 inspections, municipal facility inspections, detention pond inspections, and dry weather screening. Once that's completed, we will have finished that 5-year requirement, and we will already be into the first year of the new 5-year permit. So at that point, for the following 4 years, we'll have to do 25% of those inspections again. And that's usually how we try to break it down, 25% a year. If we're in the 5-year period, it's roughly 20%. After that's completed and we have a handle on the EPD requirements on the regulatory side, another issue with what's going on with the city is the state of the stormwater infrastructure. And so we would want, once we've visited all of the stormwater infrastructure and we get a good idea of its current condition, we'd want to develop a stormwater master plan and infrastructure assessment to determine going forward what items need either maintenance or replacement. We've already discovered, some pipes that are in bad shape. A lot of communities that that are in the metro Atlanta area right now are experiencing the same thing, which is a lot of metal pipe was installed in the late 80s and 90s, and a lot of that metal pipe is coming to the end of its life, and so it either needs to be relined or replaced. So what we would do is create a stormwater master plan and prioritize those systems and how they need to be replaced. Another thing that I know that has been seen in the area is some localized flooding of different backyards and streets. And in order to get a good handle on what's going on there, we would also want to look at developing an overall stormwater model for the entire city. That way we can determine, kind of what's causing the flooding, what measures we could put in place at that point. With a model built, you can turn things on, turn things off, and determine what works best in certain situations. And that is something we want to pursue as well in trying to help with the localized flooding. Obviously, with both of these, the stormwater master plan and stormwater model, these are, and then eventually a capital improvement project lift for stormwater infrastructure. It's going to be very expensive. So one thing that is definitely recommended by us that a lot of communities implement with a stormwater program. In fact, cities like Fairburn, City of Fayetteville, Union City, College Park all have stormwater utilities. We've helped develop and implement many of these stormwater utilities in the state of Georgia. And that is something we would want to do a feasibility study on to determine, okay, we know how bad the infrastructure is. So what would a potential stormwater fee look like? Because right now, the way the city public works is set up with funding is that it's more of a reactive, and we would want to get the city to be in more of a proactive so that we can get ahead of some of the problems. Not only does this help with the safety of citizens, but it also helps decrease replacement costs whenever you can get to a pipe and reline it before it needs to be replaced. Next slide, please. Okay. Antonio?
Thanks so much, Ray, Mr. Adams. This is the end of our presentation for Public Works, and we'll leave it up to the mayor and council where we can have questions and answer any questions that our council and mayor may have.
First in the queue, I have Councilman Sebastian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So Ms. Anderson's still around. I have a couple of questions specific to the call center.
Yes,
operations. All right. So if I heard her correctly, she said that the agents are going to push the things over to the department level for resolving. I didn't hear anything about the flow back to the citizens, because what happens a lot of times, people come to us for multiple things and not knowing that they're either handled or being underway at least, right? And is there, in relation to that, where is the information going to be stored on resolution? And how are we going to tie it back to the call center information?
Ms. Sebastian, thanks for that question. I'm gonna let Neymar answer the first part of that as he's doing that piece under IT. But the expectation is for each department to return a resident's call within 48 hours of receiving that call, even if it's not a immediate resolution to their concern, just to acknowledge within a 48-hour period. Neymar, are you on?
Can I add something here, Councilor Sebastian? Our intention is not to accumulate anything. We want to resolve issues as a safety, operation procedures, and capital projects. We don't want to accumulate more than a week, and anything that's beyond the standard operation procedures, it will go as a capital project, and we will inform our community as issues arise. But we don't plan on accumulating anything on our call center, either on cyclic fix.
I'm not sure if that answered my question, Mr. Antonio. I was just simply saying when the flow comes from the citizen who calls the call center and it gets bumped back over to the department, even if the department handles it immediately and gives a resolution, is there going to be some sort of record stored? Is it going to be connected back to that original call to the call center? And if the answer is yes, just how is that going to be? How is it going to be done? Because if someone calls again on the same issue, rather than the agent looping it back over to staff, and staff has to go and look into it, they can simply say, "Hey, this thing is being handled," and give the person information right away, so that staff do not spend a good amount of time going back and forth on the same issues.
Yes, this is Neymar Strickland, IT Director. Councilman, what we're going to do is most of the calls that we are seeing that are coming for staff and departments is related to their current operational things that they're presenting and providing to constituents. So what we're doing is we're going to have the email address, the numbers will be stored in the email address, but through their inherent applications that they're using, like the community development, code enforcement, and things like that, that's where those things will be tracked as relates to the current status, because that's where most of the action for those requests are happening.
Okay, and both staff and the call center would have access to that information.
Yes, so the call center, well, staff will have the email addresses, and it's not only one individual, it's a shared address and a shared email address and a shared number. So from the director and all that he recommends, we'll have access to monitor that. And the kind of concept around it is based on their inherent applications, whatever the statuses are within in those applications and how they track. Because, for example, they call for a permit. Most of the permit tracking is actually done within the actual permit system. So that would be just an inquiry for a specific permit or status that will be handled and updated within the system itself. And I think some of those reports that you all are getting from those respective applications, that's where a lot of that response would come back to. But we will make a note on it as it relates to tying the calls that come into the call center to those updates.
Okay. And just one last thing. I'm assuming if the agents somehow don't know which department is responsible for something that they get asked, there's like a catch-all place, or are they just gonna just choose any department and throw it over?
No, so each department will provide data related to the services. So it's basically going to be service driven, not necessarily department driven. So based on the particular service, the call center will be noted, these departments handle these services. So the catch-all will be, we will provide a catch-all to where if you don't know, it's kind of like the front desk would help track those. So we also have one for the actual receptionist up front where there's a catch-all needed.
Okay. And my last question is surrounding the right-of-way maintenance, Mr. Antonio.
Yes, sir.
I noticed already that the people, it seems as if the new contractor have started with the right-of-way, right? Maintenance.
The right-of-way will start on October 1st. Our current vendor is still contracted up to September 30th.
Okay. The current vendor is the one you're managing directly. This is not Jacobs, is it?
No, the new
okay
contractor starts October 1st. Is
okay.
Brightview.
I don't know if it's just my mind or I've just been noticing this even more, and I think I alluded to this in a recent meeting as well. I just happened to see one area this afternoon that is very well maintained. It was very nicely cut. But part of it was in the city of South Fulton, part of it was in the city of Fairburn, right? And you know, I asked the question the other day about Union City and us maintaining the right of way for some of these cities seemingly around us. So I'm just asking, do we have any agreement with these other cities that they help foot the bill for maintaining these right of ways, or do we have to make sure we have the proper mapping in place so that we're not spending our money maintaining these cities around us? Because there are lots of them around us, especially in District 4.
That's correct. Through access of our new team, which will have additional support for GIS. We're currently mapping all the about 230 miles that we're going to be maintaining, and under the plan of 30, 60, 90 days, we will be making some adjustments. There's some roads that we share in each district. We have roads that we share with the city of Atlanta, with Union City, with College Park, with the city of Fairburn, and so on. But we'll definitely gonna go into more detail and have to do more discussions with their public works directors and our current vendor.
Okay. I think that's all I have for now.
All right, thank you, Councilman Sebastian. Seeing no other questions, I'm sorry, let me check the queue. We
got Councilmember Gomes.
Okay, go ahead, Councilman Gomes.
Mine is in reference to the call center as well. I wish we did stop because I done forgot most of it, but I think most of the questions have been answered. For the call center, the virtual assistants, who will be actually answering these calls? I mean, are they going to be going to an international number? And you may have said this and I may have missed it. And how will they really be able to, I guess, address the issues and concerns that we have locally if it is going to, somebody outside of the city?
Ms. Anderson, she's going to be answering that question, but we plan on bringing the new system to do a demo for our council, mayor and council. But Ms. Anderson, please.
Thank you, Councilwoman Gomes, for that question. I do have Donna Franklin from Turnkey Solutions on the line that can briefly go over the process of her organization and what it does. Are you there, Donna?
I am. Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and Council, City Manager, and all of the South Fulton team, City of South Fulton team. We're thrilled to have the opportunity to share with you what we do. My name, as Ms. Anderson said, is Donna Franklin. I'm the President and CEO of Turnkey Solutions. We've been in business 20 years. As of this past June. We are actually right here in the city of South Fulton, Councilmember Gomes, so you don't have to worry about us being somewhere else. Our call center is actually located on the campus of Atlanta Technical College. We're in partnership with them in doing this call center. But just to tell you a little bit about our company, our business has been with state and local government for the last 20 years. That's roughly 98% of our business. And our focus is on the citizen experience. So we've done everything from consultancy on how governments can give their citizens a better experience and better connect with their citizens, to helping governments assess their technology, build a call center, help them choose agents, train agents, and put it together. One of the things that we found with many governments is that it is a challenge to put a 311 service together for a number of reasons. For the smaller governments, it's a budget issue. There's just a plethora of reasons, some of which I'm sure you all are familiar with. And so the Turnkey Municipal Call Center has been created to do just that. It's a shared services model where the city of South Fulton will forward their number to us. Your citizens, as Ms. Anderson presented, will not know the difference. We have a software that we use that actually provides our agents, our live agents. So there's two tiers to it. So I'm going to speak to the live agents because I believe that was your question. So there's a software that we use that provides our live agents with an actual flow of each frequently asked question. So our agents know what to ask your citizens to get them to the right answer. And that's how we both train our agents more quickly and ensure that responses are standardized, responses are accurate in terms of what you want your citizens to hear on any particular topic. The virtual agent aspect of that, as Ms. Anderson presented, which would be the first phase, is an actual natural language virtual agent that also can answer those questions. It can transfer calls to the departments or to whoever the designated people are, the designated numbers are for each department. But it doesn't just have to transfer. For instance, after hours, there may not be anyone to answer that call. So the virtual agent can actually text information to the citizen, whether it's directing them to the website or telling them they need to call back and the number they need to call in the morning when the departments are open. So that, I hope that answers at least it answers the part of your question as to whether we're remote. We are right here. I personally am right here in the city of South Fulton. So you all can come get me at any time.
Well, thank you for that. And my last question is, what other municipalities have you worked with before so we can kind of gauge and compare, just for my own personal edification?
Our largest customer is the city of Atlanta. They were also my first customer 20 years ago, and we've retained them as a customer through the years. We've also done, just in the metro area, we've done work with DeKalb County, we've done work with Fulton County. We're doing work now with the city of Union City. I'm trying to think of Clayton County. We did a huge customer service training for them recently. So those are just a few of them. I can provide more, and there are others outside of the metro area. We have customers in Virginia and Texas, so just in different places around the country. But those are the ones that are close to home.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Absolutely.
That's my questions.
All right, cool. I've got a couple of questions. I don't see anyone else in the queue. I've got several questions. I'm going to start with picking up where Councilwoman Gums left off, Ms. Anderson and Ms. Ray. First of all, I love that you all are in the city. I love to do business with our residents and our people. So, and ATC is a great partnership. The call center. So I call. What determines whether I get a virtual person or a real person?
Well, the virtual agent would be the first point of answer each time.
Okay.
When the virtual agent cannot address my issue as a citizen, it would then pass it to a call center agent, or if the city of South Fulton prefers, directly to whomever you all designate within the city.
Okay. The virtual agent speaks, correct?
It does.
Okay. So I'm going to bring up this issue as an African-American man with a deeper voice. I've always had problems with those agents. I just went back and forth with one for Comcast today. Can I hit 0 and just get to a person, or like how difficult will that be?
It's not difficult at all. The virtual agent will be set up as we set it up. So if you determine that it doesn't understand you twice or it doesn't understand you once, it can immediately offer them a live person during the day. At night, you can set it up that if you wanted to, I don't know if I would recommend this, but it's a possibility. You could send them to a general voicemail box if it doesn't understand the intent at night. But the other thing that's great about the virtual agent is we are able to pull up and see what a transcript of every single call, and specifically calls that were not understood. So we can go in and see for instance, let's say we had this come up just recently. We trained the virtual agent to hear what's the address of City Hall, where is City Hall, where, you know, those kinds of questions. But then someone said, where are you located? We didn't train it to hear where are you located and respond, City Hall is blah, blah, blah. So we were able to pull it up, we can see it, and we can change that and add it so that the next time that comes up, the virtual agent is able to answer that as well. So it's an AI-driven software. So what you will experience is the service getting better and better as time goes on.
Awesome, thank you. And I'm going to ask. I got a lot of questions. I'm going to ask if we could keep the answers just a little bit more brief. But thank you, and I'm sure that being in South Fulton and working with Atlanta Technical College, you are that AI will learn our voices in the way that we speak here in South Fulton. The 500 plus people, I think you said, hung up before we got to them last month. Our whole time is around 3 minutes. What is our goal for the whole time with this new call center?
I would have to, yeah.
Thank you for that question, Mayor. I did look at that, and with the virtual agent, their whole time should not be high. I'll let Donna speak on that from her experience, but if the virtual agent is answering them and directing them and transferring them, there shouldn't be a whole time.
Okay, so there's a virtual agent and then there's real people. How many actual real people will be in our call center?
So let me clarify that, because I think we mentioned that earlier. The first 3 months of this quarter, the fiscal year 23, will be virtual agent only because of the time it takes to actually go into the live agent portion. The live agent portion would be until January of 2023. The goal is for each department to, those calls will be directed to each department when they want to speak to someone outside of what the live agent can handle, if that makes sense. So I apologize.
Are we going to base our hiring on the call volume over the next 3 months, or do you already have an idea of how many people you'd like to staff in the call center?
Based on the number, go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Based on the numbers that we have now from Jacobs over the last 3 quarters, we will work with Donna from her expertise to see what that number looks like. Kind of have an idea, but again, it's something we're continuing to evaluate.
Okay, and we're going from 24/7 to 12/7. Is that because most of our calls came in before 7 p.m. or just like how do we make that decision?
We believe the 12/7 will work with this AI virtual agent component. Because of the AI technology with this component, the after hours calls and the ability. Now, let me mention that any emergency calls, whether it's traffic lights are down, they will go to an on-call person in Public Works that will be able to address those issues immediately. So any calls that are not emergency, that are inquiries, the virtual agent will direct them to call back the next day.
Awesome. Ms. Anderson, you said that 38, could you give the percentages of what those calls were about? The calls?
Sure. Let me go back to my notes. So hold on 1 second. So 38% of them were Public Works, 23 was code enforcement, 12% of them was CDRA, Police Department was 11%, and courts were 9%, and the others were various departments, Park and Rec, finance, economic development. So those were basically very small percentages. So your largest 5 were Public Works, Code Enforcement, CDRA, courts, and Police Department.
Courts were 9%, you said?
Courts is 9%, yes.
Perfect. And this goes to some of Councilman Sebastian's questions. I think it would be great to get a monthly report with a graph with some pictures with the following KPIs: the number of calls, and then a pie chart with that percentage about what people are calling about, so we know how many residents are calling, what they're calling about. a heat map that just shows where in the city the calls are coming from, the percentage of cases that we resolve versus the percentage that are closed. That's not, always the same. And previously, when we would get these reports, we would hear that we were having these like 90% closed cases, but then people would just call back and reopen the case up again. The average wait time, and I'll send this as well, the average wait time for an answer, and then the average time from when a call is reported to when it's resolved, sort of broken down by topic, right? Because paving a street is not going to be resolved as quickly as picking up a dead animal. But I just think that it's important that we have these KPIs to know what people are calling about, and how quickly their calls are being resolved and where we're having challenges in resolving issues. Then lastly, my question for the call center is the 311. What would it take, because you work with Atlanta, and I think they have a real 311, what would it take for us to have a real 311 where I can just call 311 and not have to memorize a whole 10-digit number?
That would be something that we would have to work out with the provider. We were involved with the setup of Atlanta's original 311. I can tell you that just getting the 311 number worked out between Atlanta and DeKalb took about a year. Because it's a technical issue. If you're on one side of how do you determine which side of the, are you on the Atlanta side? Are you on the South Fulton side? Are you in College Park? So that's why it takes a while. And then Bell South had to eventually actually give permission for Atlanta to have 311. So we can certainly look into it, but it's not something I could answer immediately.
I assume with our boundaries, it'll take even longer than that. But stormwater, Mr. Ray, this was, especially after visiting Jackson this weekend, this is like something that's near and dear to me. You say that we'll be submitting a new, we have to submit a new application in November for the next 5 years. Now that we're over 100,000 people, are we a phase 1 city now?
Ray, are you there?
Yes.
Yeah. Please go ahead and explain the phase 2 permitted that we are, since we are over 100,000. Just explain in more detail our phase 2 permitted that we are.
Lisa, are you on? Okay, her mic's probably not working. To my understanding is that even going over the 100,000, that there were going to be no more phase 1 larges in the system. So I don't anticipate the permittee list coming out and there being a change to that. It's not just a population driven metric that involves a phase 1 or phase 2 community. A lot of it has to deal with where the population is in urbanized areas, and there's other census parameters that go into when phase 1s and phase 2s were established. For instance, I have phase 1 communities that are smaller than South Fulton, but because of proximity and other census data, they were bumped up as being a phase 1 large community. It's not just a population driven parameter that's involved in that. If the new permittee list will come out, and if there is a change, it's not too big of a deal to the city of South Fulton. Both permits are generally the same. There's a few more inspections that go into the phase 1 permit as far as industrial inspections and HVPS inspections. But everything else is the same. So even if that were to change, it wouldn't be a drastic change with the program we already have in place.
Awesome. Who generates our MS4 maps? One is Mr. Antonio, like who did it previous to this company, and then we'll integrate it. Will you all be generating those going forward?
In the past, as Mr. Ray indicated, it was done by Fulton County. Since then, we didn't have anybody doing it for the city. And we were very fortunate that now I wish you could see the link and see how much we have on GIS. It's been done by our current consultant.
All right, so they're gonna, and we don't. That was my question. We don't need any additional. There was talk about GIS here, and then there was talk about GIS and traffic operations. We don't need, because these are private companies that are doing this. We don't need to bolster our IT department in any way to do.
Yes and no. No, because when it comes to stormwater, it's a specialty, totally different. But we're working in conjunction with IT to ensure that we're working under the IT platform. We're not having a separate GIS. It's linked to our IT. When it comes to traffic operations and our other projects that we have on bumping up our current project status, perhaps the street sweeping, right-of-way maintenance, and so on, that will be a support from our other team to provide that GIS technical support and assistance to us to ensure that our IT is fully, that they ensure that they have the full support. But everything will be worked from our GIS base map at the city.
Okay, two more questions. Can citizens use 311 or C-Click Fix to report illicit discharges or post-construction stormwater runoff? And where have those reports been going thus far?
I have not seen those kind of reports, but the intention going forward is that C-Click Fix, it's looked at a better concept. We don't want to put 1,000 ideas right there. We want to put the most common items that a regular resident can look at into C-Click Fix or whatever other database that or software that we will use that can be easily for them to drop down and provide that request, and for us to receive and being able to provide them a response. We're going to make it as simple as possible.
I hear that. I just want to make sure that there is a place that we, when our citizens are reporting stormwater runoff because of new construction, that like there's clearly a place that is being reported to. There's a place that it is being tracked, and that we are keeping a record of it. And that goes into my last. It's really more of a statement, and I would would love to hear a response from Mr. Ray or whoever. But we have been either as a city or very often before in the county approving construction, particularly of homes, that ends up having erosion issues in neighborhoods. I showed a video last week but you know, we have approved this construction, and within 3 to 5 years, people are having runoff issues in their backyards. Their decks are sinking, or just whatever is happening. And sometimes the runoff affects neighborhoods that are adjacent to the new neighborhood. So I went to an older neighborhood off of Willie Road, and those residents who called me over there, they were having runoff issues because of increased flow in a creek behind their house due to the flattening of land in a subdivision next door. And so just being more thorough in how we are inspecting that and looking for those issues and charging impact fees for those issues or for issues that could arise out of all of this construction would be very helpful.
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor. We will make all those provisions, and I also want to ensure you that we are working now very closely with CDRA, with the new director. He is aware of their responsibilities, and the MS4, we share responsibilities with CDRA. They are the ones that regulate many things, and we are the ones that maintain. So we're working very closely with them. Our current consultant is also in touch with them. We will have additional educational programs coming to your council and mayor for you to share with our communities. We believe that many things are also part of education, and we acknowledge that our infrastructure is in such a need for different reasons. You know, going from rural to being an urban areas, things have changed in many ways, and the number of drainage issues that we have are in the thousands. But we are getting there. I think about this year completing at 60% inspections, and hopefully by the spring being at 100%, we're going to be in much better shape than we were before.
All right, and my last two questions about traffic operation for Mr. Batarka. Who handles the traffic signals and signs? Like if something gets knocked down, who gets in the bucket truck and fixes the light?
The contractors. Samir, just a quick add to this, Mr. Mayor. As we mentioned before, our hybrid approach. We're ready to act after October 1st. We don't want to double dip with the current services that we have, but after October 1st will be our consultants, contractors, and City of South Fulton staff. If we're to get early before their team, that's what we'll do. But I'm very confident that Samir will explain in better detail all the support that we were going to get from their team.
So we've got two-pronged approach. We actually have a traffic engineer who's also a coordinator that's on site 8 to 5 every single day, but he also carries a phone for 24/7 support. So during 8 to 5, if he can get on the site, see if he can handle it. If he cannot handle it, he'll get the contract. He'll first go with our city staff, our own team member, and see if we can handle it. So we don't have to pay the contractor extra money. If we cannot handle that, that's when we will have the contractors come out on site. The contractors have been chosen on the basis of how quickly they can be on site. So far, there's been some instances where we've come in to help, and they've shown that they can be there in an hour or less. They take pride in that. After hours, between 5 and let's say the next morning at 8 o'clock, the traffic coordinator will be routing all those calls and requests directly to the contractor for the contractor to be on site.
All right, and the last thing is again just more of a statement. I don't know if we have been doing this or not, but it's my understanding that we can be filing insurance claims when people are knocking out lights or knocking out boxes, and we could be recouping that money. So are we doing that? Have we done that? And going forward, who would do that for us? Would it be the contractor or you, Mr. Valenzuela?
Mr. Mayor, that activity fall under risk management, and we've been working with PD and ensuring that anytime there's an accident, it goes back to risk management, and risk management gets all the funds back for the city. Sometimes, as you're aware of, it's very expensive to repair guardrails, very expensive to repair mast arms and signals and cabinets, and we definitely need to get those monies back when accidents occur at fault.
All right, and Madam City Manager, we have a risk manager now?
Yes, we do. I actually met
Yes.
this manager this morning.
Yes, his name is Eric Runyon, and he just started with us on yesterday.
Hey. All right, those are my questions. Thank you very much. All right, it is 6:30 now. I think we had one more presentation, but I can just forward that on to council. It was the report from Dr. Paxton about COVID and monkeypox, and then you all can always just ask her, respond to by email with your questions, if that is all right with council.
Mayor, I move that you forward the monkeypox and COVID report onto council for us to follow up later, and for us to have a 10-minute break before we go into our next meeting.
Second.
Could we all right, could we make it a 6-minute break so we start at 6:40? So
No.
I've made my motion and it was seconded, sir.
Properly moved and seconded. Mr. Clerk, please call the vote.
So roll call vote. Councilmember Rao,
Yes.
Councilmember Gums,
Yes.
Councilmember Willis,
Yes.
Councilmember Sebastian,
Yep.
Mayor Pro Tem Reeves,
Aye.
Councilmember Williams.
Yes.
That motion was approved.
All right, we are adjourned until 6:45.
Record.